Good morning and welcome to Life and Style. Thank you for joining us on Relationship Wednesday. Talk to Pastor Chris. I know, don't change the channel. Your TV is not broken. Yes, I am not Pastor Chris. If you can't tell the difference, I think it's the hair. But I'm standing in for Pastor Chris today. I am Martin Givenji. You can find us on social media at KTN Life _style on Twitter, and on Facebook it's KTN Life and Style. You can also email us on lifeandstyle@standardmedia.co.ke. Today we are at the Mugs and Brews restaurant on Ngong Road. In case you live around or you happen to be visiting around, make sure to drop in for some nice meals and a serene environment as we here hope to engage in a wonderful conversation on something that's kind of heavy, especially looking at what has been happening in Kenya in the recent past. So today we shall be engaging on a conversation on violence. Well, there are many professionals who are using different terms to refer to the violence that is happening. The specific kind of violence we're talking about is either domestic violence or gender-based violence. But I have a panel with me that is going to give in-depth analysis as far as all of that is concerned. So my panel, I would have loved to introduce all of you, but I believe you have better ways of introducing yourselves.
Thank you very much, Martin, for having us. My name is Marino Tieno, and I consult for an organization, Equality and Inclusion Development Agency. And some of our core functions include working with sexual gender-based violence, looking at domestic violence, and we look at those components and how they affect the work environment. Therefore, I'm very glad to be here because it's a very hot topic in our country, and it's something that we need to discuss moving forward because it's brought in a lot of things about our cultures, our traditions, and it's important to have this discussion moving forward as a country. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Yeah.
I'm David Kuria. I'm a life coach, and I'm also a consultant, a marketing consultant. And I know we are going to talk a lot that is going to change our society. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. And then last but not least, we have Josephine Kinya Abincha. Karibu sana.
Thank you. My name is Josephine, like you have said, Josephine Kinya Abincha. I'm a counseling psychologist and addiction expert. I work on an umbrella of an organization called Living Dreams Consortium, and we do marriage counseling, we take kids through therapy, we do dating counseling, addiction counseling, and I believe this discussion for today really comes in handy, especially at this time we are in this country. And yeah, thank you for having you all here.
Karibu sana, karibu sana.
Intimate partner violence, sometimes called teen dating violence or domestic violence, is a pattern of behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate relationship. An intimate partner is a person's boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, partner, or lover. Intimate partner violence may include different kinds of abuse. Physical abuse may include hitting, kicking, punching, or other kinds of physical violence. Emotional abuse may not include physical violence, but it can be equally as harmful. When someone is abused emotionally, they may be called names, humiliated, yelled at, or made to feel intimidated. The abuser may try to control the other person by telling them what to do, what to wear, or where they can and cannot go. Financial abuse is when a person tries to control and limit their partner's access to money so that the partner will be dependent on them. One example would be if the person discouraged or disallowed the partner to work and make their own money. Another is if the person takes the partner's money or credit cards and refuses to give them back. Another form of abuse is known as stalking and harassment. Stalking or harassing someone may include spying on them or following them around and constantly showing up where they are or refusing to leave when asked. Stalking also can include sending harassing or unwanted emails, texts, or posts. Finally, there is partner abuse that involves sexual abuse. This type of violence is when a person forces their partner to participate in sexual acts or behaviors without their consent or ignores the partner's sexual boundaries. Just because a person is in an intimate relationship with someone doesn't mean that they must have sex with them or do sexual things that they find uncomfortable or demeaning. If you or someone you know is being abused in a relationship, it's important to know that it's never the fault of the abused person, and it's important to ask for help. To get help, you can talk to the school counselor, a social worker, or another trusted adult.
Now, to kick us off, probably I'd want to start with you, David. There's something that is happening in Kenya right now that is, I'm not quite sure whether it is a flow of information that has become prompt, that we get to know of it right now, that it's always been there, or is it something new that is happening in Kenya in the scale that it is happening as far as violence meted towards women, or in some cases men, is concerned?
Let me say that there is a new emergence of a trend where people are violent towards one another. Even when we draw back to countries, developed countries like US, you're going to find people are stabbing one another with knives, and there's so much violence in the land. Yeah, gun violence,
well.
suicide bombers, and they are doing it without holding back. So it's a new culture that has arisen, and I would want to attribute this to moral decay. There has been an increase in moral decay in our country and in the world at large.
Even before we get to the reasons why it is happening, because the reasons are quite varied on different scopes, probably I'd also want to hear maybe from Josephine as far as the same thing is concerned. As a practicing psychologist, have you noticed a difference in the magnitude of cases of violence as far as that is concerned?
Martin, the cases are all over. You know, the media, and it's actually happening on the ground. And like David has said, I think, I don't know, nowadays it's looking like it's cool to kill another person, you know, and the
Just
moment...
in case people are not sure, no, it is not.
It is not
good.
It is not.
Yes.
It is not at all. That, remember the last time some killings happened in a week, we had like 4. So becoming like a norm. But I think we should attribute this to where are people right now? Where are we as human beings? What are we going through? What issues are we facing? Are we able are we well adapted to handle these issues that's coming up? Are we well prepared for life? Are we well grounded to face the challenges?
Yeah.
The answer is no.
Therein lies a very, very big problem. Anyway, Maureen Gertrude, so from a conversation that we were having earlier, we were trying to define what is happening right now. Is it domestic violence? Is it just, if I may say that, is it just domestic violence? Probably this can also be an exchange between Josephine and yourself, because you have different levels. You have domestic violence, sexual violence, gender-based violence. So can we put a finger and say, so this is it, so we can now start working towards solving it?
Well, in my opinion, what I'd say is that understanding domestic violence begins by defining what exactly domestic violence is. And I could say that domestic violence is an aggressive behavior within the domestic setting, because the context really matters. Yeah. And when we understand that it's within that context, now gender-based violence is actually a broader term, where domestic violence can be a form within the broader umbrella. But what you need to understand is that for you to understand domestic violence is perpetrated across genders, you see, and you need to understand that it's an abuse of power. It can never be gender-based violence where it's just brother to, it can never be gender-based violence where there's no abuse of power. Power relations also determine how it's going to present itself. So it's important to understand that. And also just to mention, I think also in the country we're beginning to notice that it's happening within a certain age bracket. which I think is also an issue of concern, because I don't think we're seeing it at 80 or 90. We're seeing it within a certain age bracket being fueled by certain factors, which we'll discuss much later.
All right, Josephine as well. So in terms of I don't want to miniaturize them and say to violences, but in terms of the different forms of violence, is there one that also you can bring out in a certain way? Like, are we, because we have cases where, which probably the media has taken up quite massively recently, is the case of the young gentleman who traveled all the way to Eldoret, akiwa na shoka, and went and hacked the lady that was recently buried. So at what level of violence are we talking about as far as this one is concerned? Other than the murder itself. We're not putting that aside.
Yeah, basically, like Marina said, violence, domestic violence is any form of violence, really, is where the other person or where the other human being is trying to exert power and control in any setting. And now we are looking at the domestic, in a family or relationship point of view. So, yeah, so much of it we are seeing is out of in relationship settings, whether it is spousal or boyfriend, girlfriend, or it is yeah, something to do with the relationships. And
I like that direction, because at least it gives us a focal point, because now we're focusing on violence within relationships, regardless of whatever form of relationship you have. So now, David, we have a young man who travels all the way from Thika, premeditates, goes all the way to Eldoret and hacks a young lady in broad daylight, and unless I have my facts wrong, recently said he did not do it while he was pleading in court. Why do you think first? Why do you think, not just in his case, but what are some of the things you have experienced that you'd say, as you already began saying, are the causes of domestic violence or relationship violence?
There is one problem that I have noted with a great concern, and that one is where people are so much depressed, mostly young people. And depression is where you reach a certain stage in your mind where you cannot see the way forward.
I think which is what Josephine was saying. Are we well equipped to deal with things? Probably not, yeah.
So in this case, like the case of Ivy, this guy sees, if I'm not going to have you, better you die. And I also seek a method to, probably he wanted to be killed because he was doing it in front of other people. You get it? So there is a problem whereby our young people, or even the general population, is is very depressed. And one of the disadvantages of the current environment, or even people, they don't recognize that they are depressed. If you tell somebody, if they go to a doctor and they are told that they have depression, they will deny. Reason? They woke up in the morning, they did what they do every day. You get it? But there is a certain kind of desperation that is in their hearts. They cannot be able to see hope for tomorrow. And in these cases, you'll get that somebody like that has invested something towards the lady. And I would like to put this point across. Probably he bought him a phone, let's say, for example, and he put a price tag on that madam or that man. He puts a price tag because of money he has invested on them. And he is like, where am I going to get back my money after you have dumped me? You get?
Well, you will not get it back once you have killed them.
So
either.
you're seeing like the investment he has made has been thrown in a river and has been carried away. You get it? So there is a problem whereby our young people have mental illnesses. And people do not recognize this. That is why we need to a society to be awakened to the fact that depression is real in this time and age.
All right, which somehow brings up a totally different conversation, which we shall not delve into, but depression as one of the causes of the relationship violence. Josephine, what are some of the other causes that you can point out as the reason why you, from what you have experienced, the reasons why this is happening?
Most of the killings that we've seen, Martin, of late is, and like we've said, is relationship. You see a string of relationship coming up, love issues and love gone sour, relationships gone sour, and we would really associate some of these killings when you look at the person, like the guy David is talking about, the guy who went to is it Kitare or Eldoret?
Eldoret, yes.
Just act. The question we should be asking, like I said earlier, is how well adapted are we as human beings? As this young man is growing up, do they have the social skills? Can they be able to stand and know, you know, like this is not working and now I can move on and do something else. I've called this girl and she's not picking, but it is okay. Maybe the phone is. How mentally health are we as human beings? You know, for depression, like David is putting it very well, is that everybody gets depressed for one thing or the other. We get sad, you know, this doesn't work, I'm
Like
waiting
me,
for a mat,
I
it's
look
not
at
coming.
my bank account now,
You
it's
feel
just
a bit,
frustrating.
you feel a bit sad, you know. But really, you know, and we are able to manage, we are able to manage, and we are able to see tomorrow, like he said very well. Guys are not able to see tomorrow, like there's any hope. So when somebody gets into a relationship and ties all their whole in this relationship, so if there's a flip of like it's not working, then they lose it, then there's a problem. So there's a condition called erotomania.
What?
Erotomania.
Okay.
This condition is very interesting because, you know, you think Maureen is your girlfriend in your mind, and she's madly in love with you. So, and she's not there. She knows Martin is my friend, and so the moment I realize that it is not what I think and what I believe, then I lose it. So we will see some of this, and this will happen to most people who are either going through depression, schizophrenia, some sort of disorder, and it's really a problem. So we are so maladjusted, and we need to seek help. I do dating counseling, and I always advise young people, go for counseling first. Make sure that you offload this baggage, whatever you are carrying from where you are coming from, whether it's a broken relationship. Instead of walking, like David was saying, that, you know, you wake up in the morning, you're going to work, you're doing your thing, and you think you're okay. But deep inside, there's no human beings. You're just finished. So I would recommend guys to go for counseling. Let's appreciate, let's embrace therapy. We go and talk about these things that are bothering us before I meet David.
Right, true.
Know?
And something interesting is that in some of the cases, if not most, you realize that the family members, when asked about these people, they say things like, no, he was a very good person, alikuwa anapenda watu, anatumikia jamii, anapenda watoto wake. Then all of a sudden, somebody has killed their wife and the children as well. They're all dead. Like the gentleman who was, I think, a military officer who did that recently. We have also a police officer who went to a club to claim his rights from a lady, and instead he ended up killing a gentleman next to her who was trying to protect her. So probably from you, Maureen, is this something that just comes up one day and then whap, somebody's violent? Or have you experienced instances where there's actually a pattern where you can actually say, okay, there is probably something brewing, and not to play a pun on the fact that we are at Mugs and Brew, but there's something brewing underneath.
Of course, what I want to say is that these symptoms don't just show up one day. And I'm reminded of a story of what we call the Stockholm Syndrome. It happened in 1973, where we had, it was actually, there were armed robbers, bank robbers who stormed into a bank and held, they were like, held like 6 people hostage in a bank vault. And what they did was that they strapped them in dynamite, and they had them there for like 6 days, actually. There were a couple of people had them for 6 days, that's the correct story. And when they had them there for 6 days, when they were rescued, something happened. That instead of the captors going like, thank you for saving us, actually we have been liberated, some of them actually kept contact.
The victims
The
kept
victims
contact
kept
with
contact
the captors.
with the captors.
Mm-hmm.
And even when they were called to testify, and this is an actual story, and this is what's happening in relationships, and that's what is referred to as the Stockholm Syndrome in relationships. Why do we stay in abusive relationships? Because you don't wake up one morning and I just slap you. There were offshoots that may be some red flags, some conversations here and there, and you discover, and that's why you discover in the family, they come up and say that in the family structure, we never saw him like that. Now with the Stockholm Syndrome, it goes to your brain, how your brain begins to process pain. You begin to adapt to the pain. You begin to see that this is normal. My father did it, isn't it? So again, I want us to look at the family structure and to look at the culture that we are in Africa. Because at times for me to exert my presence as a man in this family, I have to be tough. I have to put my foot down. You see? So you discover that at times we become bonded to the pain, such that by the time the hack is on my neck, the axe is on my neck.
You are just saying, this is just a man.
He's gonna change.
You
So
know.
he beats me up tomorrow, and tomorrow he comes with a new fridge, diapers. You know, we need the babies fed, you know, the school fees is paid. And it's wiped out an entire history of pain. The family comes, there was some domestic violence, ng'ombe ikaletwa, tukakaa kama jamii. And because of those systems of solving violence, we discovered that we predispose our daughters further. So it becomes a norm. And also, just to bring it further, there also the tribes that view violence as normal.
This is true and quite unfortunate, yes, because like you said, yes, there is the Africanness of violence, yes. But then, like David also said, this is not something that is only common in Africa. This is something that is global, that he has attributed to something like moral decay. So are we, in essence, David, also saying that the victims have a blame to take as far as the continuation or the expansion of violence in relationships?
The challenge that we are facing on the side of the victims is that they are not taking things seriously. And you know, small steps can tell you the direction you're headed. And you hear somebody giving you vitisho kidogo, and you take it, that is normal. You should take every threat with the seriousness it deserves. And also, it is cool to communicate what you think. You find that the moment that something has been told you or spoken to you, most of the people will brush it away. They leave the part of speaking out. I don't know what they fear when they speak out their mind, but I think there is a great deterrence when you are able to outline everything and also sort things out the moment they happen. So are you going to wait until you are hurt so that you can be able to call the person to a meeting? And that is not possible, so that you can be able to resolve that small thing that you think is small. You know, big things come from small things that have been accumulated. So there needs victims, everybody in a relationship needs to take a stock and see how far have we come. What are the small signs that I am seeing that are red flags that we can sit down with my partner or my family member, which can be sorted? Because if it doesn't get a solution now, I promise you, tomorrow it shall be big news.
You see, there's also a generational difference as far as how domestic violence used to be dealt with by those probably a generation or two above us and those of this generation, where you find, for example, a mom telling their daughter, alikugonga kofi moja, unajua zile ngumi nimetandikwa na baba yako na bado niko. So at what point, Josephine, at what point should it be, you know what, I need to go? And still, we're looking at, we should be talking about kushikanisha watu, like if this is a marriage, for example, if we in the scope of a married couple, like legally married and everything, being together for years, ametandikwa kofi moja siku moja. So at what point is it now it's time to go, or vumilia kidogo ata change? Because it's a very gray area.
An abusive relationship or a violent relationship is as bad, as addictive as any drug, because it capitalizes on the brain of this person and they become very powerless. But the question we should be asking, Martin, is for me to be in that state of vulnerability where I cannot be able to see this person has beaten me today, yesterday he threatened, and I'm here. This shows this person is not well adapted. I mean, they don't have the power. They lost the power to this person. And it could be a relationship of a few, 1, 2 years or a few months. But they are so what are we trying to say is, let people seek help. If I consider dating, or I'm already dating, or I'm married, let me go. Is it my power to say no, that I lost to this person? Is it my power that I don't even appreciate myself? Is it that when I found this partner, my expectations were up there? Maybe I live in these big places and I have to keep up. Is it my values that I was told people don't leave homes, you don't leave your marriage, you stick there?
Especially that.
Another trend that I'm seeing is, Martin, even as I do in practice, is where even the parents of the victims are encouraging the victims to stay in these abusive relationships. Why? Because there is monetary
gain.
I have a case, and just to mention an overview without going into the details, where a parent is so embarrassed that the daughter ran away from this abusive marriage. So when the visitors come, or when the mom's friends come, he doesn't want the daughter to be around because she's embarrassed. So you can imagine, like David said, the moral decay that we have. People have put lives in front of, ahead of, before so many things, Like what will people say? They are also, like you said, when we are starting, people are hanging on this abusive relationship because of my children. And we forget that these children, they came and found us. So I need to be also an healthy parent for these children. But if I'm abused, and when we talk about abuse, but we don't just talk about, it starts with that slap.
And it's good you've mentioned the children, because there's something about children as far as learning is concerned. And with domestic violence, trying to pinpoint the origins of it. So there are reasons that people give. One is, I used to see my father beat my mother and there was never a problem. That's one way somebody learns domestic violence. There's another one who will say, nikikunywa sijui ni nini huniingia, nasikiaga tu. That's some other reason that people attribute to domestic violence. So are we saying that domestic violence is learned, or is it inherent in people for them to be? Is it only those who have seen it when they were growing up that they will be like? I'm trying to put my hand in it, not just a finger on it.
I think that what we need to discuss, what we've been saying, all of us, I also agree with her, is that let's discuss the family structure. The family structure is very, very important. By the time people are coming to decide whether they want to live together, either you'll choose the marriage or you'll choose to come and stay together with the person, it's very important for me to know my spouse and their background. Most people don't invest in knowing that. And you forget that we don't exist in a vacuum. It's important for me to know, okay, let's say, for example, I'll give an example, Dan. I'm in a relationship with a person named Dan, let's say person Dan. And let me find out about Dan's father, Dan's great-grandfather, their mother. How was their relationship? Because I'll give you an example close to home where we would see that some of our neighbors, they grew up in a violent setting. And every day would go home back in the village, would see the father wake up and chase the mother down the farm every day, and would make a joke where every time she would run down to the farm, you know, there's mahindi. So she would have to hit it with her forehead, and they just part ways as they scamper for safety. And it so happened that 10 years down the line, the son did the same thing. And now we're seeing the offshoot in the third generation. So what I'm trying to emphasize on is family structures. You see, at times, if you're broken inside, as you've said, you can't have a healthy relationship. And some of us don't sit down and say that, you know what, in as much as I love you, I need to be whole. In as much as I love you, I've not confronted my hollow place. There are places that you're empty inside. There are places that you've been broken and you've not had the chance to heal, but you jumped into a situation and you're trying to just maneuver. So I'd say also the family structure is very important, because when your family and this person's family sits down, they're like, you know, it's not the first time this has happened. Let's meet together. So family structures are very important. Even before you decide to marry somebody, I didn't know the importance of this until we recently lost someone and we had to go to their home. And that's when we were like, oh, these people are like this, you know, and cultures are different. Get to know the person, get to know how he grew up. So tell me about yourself. Because most of us missed in a cosmopolitan setting. I wish it was back in the day when our parents would say, we met in the village. I used to know she used to live there. We used to meet at this tree. But now we meet, you're coming from Dubai, you're coming from Isiolo, and I'm coming from Siaya. I really don't know what happens there.
But I think, Martin, as Maureen is saying, when we start dating, do we ask during that pace, what do we do? The other day I asked some ladies I was talking, what is dating?
What people define as getting to know each
What
other.
is
Do you really get to know?
And one of the girls said, you know, nowadays the relationship starts, and I know we are deviating a little bit, but it is part of this. You know, nowadays we get intimate and then we start asking each other, and by the way, what was your number? What was your name? So we are starting relationships on the wrong footing. And I like what Morena said. During dating is the time we are supposed to be asking the right questions. But the moment I am compromised by the intimacy, then I am no longer objective. So I don't even ask, where do you come from? What is your upbringing like? You know, I like asking these questions because people are kwenu nini ni wachawi. You know, it's that, you know.
Very important
You
question.
know, we don't, yeah, so when we lose that objectivity, then we start the relationship in the wrong footing. So 2 years down the line is when you think, by the way, the other day I saw a post in my blog and somebody was saying that, you know, me, I didn't know my husband I thought the car that he comes home with there, his. Kumbe yeye anaosha gari kwa garage. You know, 2 years down the line, and there is a child, you know. So you see where the problem starts. So I also like asking this question to couples, whether you are dating or married. How healthy, before you point a finger to the other person, how healthy am I? You know, where are my anger issues? David talked about anger, you know, because I am telling you, the guy who went to Eldoret to ask that Ivy, the anger levels were out there.
and
see,
to
that's a
brew
anger,
it, to
very,
brew it up.
very
And
anger.
even
That's not
as we wind up, David, and I'd like you also to touch on this. So, because clearly this conversation is more for the victims than it is for the perpetrators. Probably the perpetrators will have their own relationship Wednesday session another day, but this one is mainly for the victims. What is it that we are saying to the victims of this violence?
Number one is introspection. You see, if somebody is wounded, he cannot be able to give another person something else other than a wood. You can never give what you don't have. Number one is to know yourself, because whenever you're getting into any relationship, you are not supposed to get in without having been healed. You introspect yourself, you understand that you have 1, 2, 3 weaknesses. And that is number one. And let me tell you, a weak person will always meet another weak person. A strong person, even when you go to hotels, if you go to Serena, you'll find that a rich person is taking tea with a rich person. And like attracts like, unlike in physics where like attracts the unlike. You get it? Huh?
Yes.
Number one is personal. Then number two is family. Dysfunctional families have contributed a lot to the breakdown of values. So we need help in our society. We actually need help. You get it?
Yes.
Because unless we get help, and this goes back to the media, goes to civil society, to schools, to pastors, every stakeholder must step in to provide the much needed help, whereby they can be able to take people through steps whereby they understand themselves, they are taken through a certain kind of education where they understand it is not cool, like a victim, it is not cool to be abused in a relationship and you stay. I like the quote that was given by Jesse Lesit when she was sentencing Alice Kamande. She said, now you must understand that it is not cool to kill, but it is cool to walk away. To the victims, it is cool to walk away when whole than when in pieces.
All right. Maureen, final remarks.
My final remarks is that don't be ashamed. It's not the end. It's not an entire book. It's just a chapter. It's just actually a page. Get the help you need. Don't be ashamed. You might be afraid. You'll talk to your parents and they will judge you. She's spoken about her organization that helps people. Talk to somebody, because whatever you carry is what you manifest. You will attract that kind. So seek help and talk to somebody. Yes.
Yeah. In closing, what I would say is let people seek help. Seek help. By the way, even the people who kill others, they are not bad people. They are good people. But there is something about them that they lost control. Whether it is anger, it is frustration, it is whatever it is. So let's guys seek help. Before we get into relationships, let's first of all sort ourselves out. Like David has said, go talk to a professional and talk about yourself, and then you'll be helped to get these skills to be able to be adaptive. Now, for the victims who are already, to answer the question you asked, if someone is in an abusive relationship or in an environment that is not conducive, and you have seen the red signs, the red flags, somebody is saying this, please run if you can. If you can't, I said the person who like mistreats the other person is not a bad person. You can seek help, both of you, and you can be able to be helped, So it is very, very important people to appreciate that there is help out there. Because even the people who are already gone and killed, like maybe they had seen the signs, but they never talked. She talked about, Maureen talked about shame and everything. Yes, today Kenyans forget very fast, by the way. Today you walk out of your home or walk out of your relationship, they talk about you. Tomorrow they are talking about something else.
Yes, yeah. Which is a good and a bad thing with Kenyans. Anyway, thank you very much. Yes, David, you have one last thing.
The last thing I would like to say is that mostly when somebody comes with a problem to their friends, family, they give the conventional kind of advice that you need to stay, a woman builds her home, those kind of advices we have to take into context. You understand? We need to take a case, instead of taking it generally and giving a general advice, we need to contextualize the issue at hand and be able to sort them out. Because if we don't solve the issue now, what that means is that tomorrow we shall have a tragedy. So is an appeal to everybody who approaches you, yes, to seek help. Kindly take their concern very seriously, because you don't want to say, if I knew, I would have.
This is true. And unfortunately, when you're already dead and gone, uh, there are no points of regrets at that level. You're already gone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maureen. Thank you very much, David and Josephine. It was an interesting discussion. To those victims and perpetrators out there, just know that not the blame, but the responsibility lies on both the victims and the perpetrators, and also the witnesses, because we've had incidences where we have neighbors saying, oh, tulikuwa tunasikia tukadhani ni mambo ya kinyumbani. We've had neighbors who've regretted not intervening when something was going completely and totally out of control. So to the people engaged, or the perpetrators or the victims of violence in relationships, please do something. Speak out. Speak to someone. You will get the help that you need. Whether you're a perpetrator, you will get help. Whether you're a victim, you will get help. Thank you very much for joining us on this Relationship Wednesday on KTN Life and Style. I have been, I know there's the Bishop collar confusing you, thinking I'll say still pastor, but no, I've been Martin Givenji on social media. You can find me at Daddy Mato. On the show's social media, you have KTN Life and Style on Facebook and KTN Life_style on Twitter. Also remember the email address, lifeandstyle@standardmedia.co.ke. Until next time, please keep safe and speak out. Have a wonderful day.
Remember, domestic violence is not love. Someone who really loves you wouldn't try to physically harm you, control you, make you feel bad about yourself, or force you to do something that you don't want to do. A loving and healthy relationship is about consent, respect, and honoring who you are as an individual.